Hello everyone, this is Cosmodius, and today I'm going to be making a video on Stationeers. So I'm going to be talking about a concept in Stationeers that most of the members of the community um, I never see talk about. In fact, they discourage. I'm not really sure why, but one of the reasons might be because they really want people to just play it for creative purposes and not try to do anything um, that could be that can create an emergent behavior in the way that people play the game. So I'm surprised they actually created multiplayer just because of that. There's only 4 servers, and um, 2 of them are the English. So that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce my mods that I use. So these mods don't actually influence very much inside the final version of my maps. Whenever I edit the map file and upload it to Steam, the first one is the Infinite Paint mod. It just ensures that the cans never use any paint. But if you already used half a can of paint before installing the mod, you'll still have half a can of paint, but you just won't be able to use it. I mean, you will be able to use it. It just won't drop in how much is left. And the next one is creative mode. This one prevents me from getting hungry or thirsty. So we have 2 maps to show off. Both of them show off a design process that I use in order to decide how I'm going to ultimately make a base design for people to play the game and actually have fun. I'm also going to go over a bit of a concept involving these types of games where I'm going to be talking about Space Station 13, something that most people probably in this community don't like to talk about because of how toxic it is. So here is my module world. And so my module world is where I test things out and I do things. And I essentially test concepts out here and designs, but I don't have that many right now that are worth anything because I always delete it. I always delete everything I make, and then I restart it, and then I delete the world and remake it. And I always have one of these, but I never keep one of them. So here we have 3 modules. The first one and second one are finished. This is the furnace module for a furnace operator role inside of a station. This is not an automated furnace. I purposely made sure it wasn't. Um, it would have been easy for me to write a piece system to set point to the pumps if I wanted, but I chose not to. And then over here is another aspect of the system, which is the tank fill. That's going to be a big deal as I'm talking about this in a little bit. The second system is the gas fuel generator, and we are on the moon. So if I can talk about the gas fuel generator on the moon, that's a rather big deal, depending on who you are, I suppose, because the moon does not have an atmosphere. And then I'm also going to be talking about this little thing here, the smart canister, and how I learned to start using them, as well as these Mark IIs, which I learned to start using as well. So the last module, which is far from complete, I actually just started it, and this is one that I decided I would use just permanently in all my future designs for the specific room, is the auto lathe or the auto fabrication room. I'm going to explain my ideas for feature designs and what I plan to do with it. So let me explain what these modules even are, because I know that a lot of people might not actually get it. We're on the moon, right? So essentially outside has no atmosphere. Because of that, I'm able to actually make this entire apparatus in here like this. It's very easy to make um, because there's no atmosphere to interact with it. Um, this represents the outside. This represents outside your base because these frames or whatever are hollow. I purposely did that, and I only solidified these ones that I had to put in boxes for obvious reasons. And over here, as you can tell, we have a 5 by 5 room. I'm not really satisfied, however, with the fact that the fact that it doesn't really highlight everything perfectly the way I want. So I'm actually probably going to try just blacking these out so that way everybody knows that this is the outside. Alright, and I'm gonna pause this for 1 second. Alright, I'm back. So anyway, I blacked out the outside. The one inside the cube is not black for obvious reasons. Oh, window needs repaired. Not that much though, so that's not too bad. So anyway, my design process features a single concept, or actually two concepts, my bad. Dummy proofing and essentially um, what is it called? Engagement. Gosh. So I want people to be engaged in their activity, but I also want things to be dummy proofed. That means that I want people to be able to interact with their workstation and not just automate everything. But I also want things to be very easy for people to use. Let's go ahead and refill this canister. Alright, so to begin with, we'll come over here. And there's a temperature in here that you can notice. It's a temperature of 4921. Not a very big deal, but what is this for? So back here on the furnace, as you can see, we put the furnace in a box. There's no air at all in the box. I don't know why I did it. I just did. I was probably going to put a single thing of ice in there, but I don't want it to get too hot and then destroy the glass because of the pressure. Because heat won't destroy it, the pressure will. So over here we have the three tanks. We have the waste tank, we have the hot tank, and we have the cold tank. Color coding is important for everything I do, except for the pipes. I don't color code my pipes ever. I think it's not very efficient or important to do because I do color code some things though, like my furnace. And shoots, why not? Makes it a little user-friendly, I feel. And so my heat tank and my cold tank both share pressure from the waste tank. The waste tank can push in, and the furnace can push out pressure to the waste tank. So the furnace and the waste help control the pressure inside. I actually don't necessarily like that system. I would actually prefer, and I'm going to just say it, that the cold tank and the hot tank can heat both the furnace and the waste tank. I would really like that concept. But I don't know how robust that would be, and I've never tried it. But I would like to do that. So that way when I manipulate the pressure, the heat's more easy to regulate. I'll just change the temperature to what I want of the waste tank, and then change the pressure inside the furnace, making it more easily controllable so that we're not fidgeting with these dials in a bunch of dumb ways. So anyway, the heat tank needs to be fueled. So over here I have a pump, and the individual who wants to fuel it, they have to go and get it fueled at a place specifically for fueling it. So then they grab it, and they put it in the fuel tank. The fuel tank takes it all. It doesn't actually, not yet. And then we pump in the fuel. The temperature drops, and then it goes right back up. And it goes up because this is nitrous oxide and hydrogen, which is extremely flammable. It's more flammable than most. It's more flammable than the oxygen and hydrogen mix. And it gets all the way up. The pressure's just doubled, and the temperature's going all the way up above 5,000 now. for double the pressure. So that essentially just jumped the pressure. And so back here we have these regulators. Because the waste tank shares pressure with these two tanks, the waste tank can never go over 30 megapascals because this pressure regulator on this side and this side are both set to 30 megapascals, or these back pressure regulators, my bad. Why is it saying this? This is kind of weird. Why is it saying that? I could have sworn I set it to. I guess the maximum is 20 megapascals for these. I didn't know that. I do now. So it's real easy to learn anything in this game. Everything that's in this game seems complex. It's actually not. But most people don't answer your questions, so you can never get a jump start in the game. It's pretty annoying. Um, so anyway, here we have 20,000 megapascals, and it starts to shoot in the air. We specifically set it like this because we didn't want it to burn any of the wires. If I have to double frame these walls in the future, I will. That's not a problem. So now here we are, a couple of 100 degrees Celsius higher, and twice the pressure. I would say our heat tank is pretty full. Now let's go to our coal tank and check that out. So pipes can bust if they're full of oxygen. So if you use water for fuel, if you use hydrogen and oxygen, and your byproducts aren't processed, whoops, that's a network analyzer. There we go. Then these pipes would have busted already, or they would get close to. And so, as you can see, the pressure constantly drops, and the temperature will go back up whenever we start actually doing something here. But all I needed was these 15 radiators. So most players actually think that the sun makes radiators hot just because you have them in the sun. That's actually not true. In fact, you need the radiator that can face the sun to do that. And that's why I created this apparatus over here. And you might think that the heat's just being shared. This isn't real life, it's a video game. It's not. And also, radiation could decay into a lower form that can't be reabsorbed once it leaves. I mean, it doesn't have to be designed to where it can reabsorb. Oh, gosh, sorry about that. So anyway, just 15 is all we need here. Whereas over here, I'll go ahead and count for you. It's 54. 54 radiators are needed to essentially cool the gas fuel generator on the moon. And I'll go over the settings for that and everything in on Mimus, because Mimus is where what we care about. We don't care about the moon, right? Mimus is where I'm going to put my base. So now let's go over some of the other design elements of this. I can control the temperature with these two dials. You would want one over the other probably to be pressed. And I was thinking of creating a single dial that controls the temperature in such a way that it stabilizes it right in the middle without using the pumps anymore. And that whenever I use one, the one pump turns on when it's positive, and then I can use lower numbers for negative. I chose not to do that. And so you always click the opposite side of the white on the dial to increase when it's 0. If it's not 0, then I can't tell you. It depends on what you set the dial to. So here is our pressure, and then here's our temperature for the inside of the furnace. Here is our pressure and temperature for the heat battery. I don't care about the cold battery because y'all know it'll cool, but it doesn't cool that fast. Honestly, I think the other system I have over there is a really good system for cooling, because the way I set them up, it's absolutely nice. So these can't overpressurize. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate creating stellite with this. And to do that, we need a silver ore, silicon, Or don't do the ingots, they come by 500s. And then cobalt. And so I always start by throwing in the cobalt, then the silicon, then the silver. And if I wanted to, we could set up a console really quick. Let's see, monitor, flash display, I think. Cable. Keep in mind, I've actually never tried this before in the game. So if this works, then I accidentally did something. So we're going to display our furnace. Let's see, our advanced furnace. See where that's at. And right now it's showing nothing, but we're going to keep it on. So now it shows nothing. We need a heat. So stellite, we'll go ahead and check it out. It requires a temperature of above 1800 Kelvin, which will be extremely easy to reach, and a pressure between 10 to 20 megapascals. So we'll go ahead and fill this up with the amount of pressure we want, because the furnace will actually cool pretty fast. So we'll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Now the heat is now melting everything that's in there. So it'll take a second. And there you go. We press the lever, stellite comes out. Mission accomplished. I just made a super alloy, and that was the first time I ever tried to use the hash on the console. And as you saw, I just did it like nothing. So now we set that to 0, and we want to get rid of the pressure. Well, that's not what we want to do. We want to get rid of the pressure. So we go to 100. And I'm going to go ahead and explain why this setup is actually kind of bad and kind of good. So the reason it's kind of good is because I'm using regular pumps in order to input anything into the furnace. And the reason it's kind of bad is because I don't know how to use turbo pumps in my setup. So regular pumps go up to 100 liters, while the other kind of pump, the turbo pump, goes to 1,000 liters. So it would really fast be able to eject everything, but as you can see, the furnace can only input 100 liters at a time. So if I set the pressure up and the heat at the same time, it would go above 1,000 liters, 100 liters, and it wouldn't inject the fuel fast enough, and it would create a buffer, and that buffer would be very nasty, because then I wouldn't be able to predict a lot. Very important to take note of that, because there's a lot of design changes I could make to this furnace to improve upon it, so that way I can make it easier. So even this design here that's finished and usable isn't actually finished. Let's go ahead and turn that to 0, come over here, and look, the temperature is now above the temperature that it had previously been. It's actually above room temperature, it's actually really hot. So we just sit here, wait for it to get lower, and essentially this is how somebody would end up playing as a furnace operator. It would be much easier because I would make the changes to the furnace that I said I would make, because I can tell you that even though this is set to what it is, this does not, well, actually, here's the problem. This thing right here. If I tried to change the temperature of this, I would succeed very easily. It would then displace its pressure between both sides here. So, and then the furnace, when I actually inject the pressure, well, I think y'all get the idea. So it would saturate things pretty quick, but it would still be more efficient in terms of getting the job done. Now let's move to our next station, now that I've explained the station here and what all these do. This is the activation for the furnace. This is the ejection for the furnace, as I showed. So we have this smart canister here. And here we have, we're going to go ahead and put it in here. So pollutants actually go right here. We would want to put a pollutant tank here, and I don't like that the developer made it this color, but you know what? I don't think they really had too much of a choice because of what they were going for, and I appreciate that they made their game. So we put that right there, and the pollutants go into there. And it's increasing the pressure in here in our cooling system, so the pollutants can instantly be used as coolant. So despite the fact that this back window is cracked, and that's actually just a bug that the developer kind of hasn't addressed yet, where windows look damaged when they didn't take any damage at all. I don't know what that's about, but at least the game works. So with our 54 radiators, there's actually nothing inside of here. It's trying to lose heat. No, it does have some stuff in there, not too much. So over here we have the chamber with the actual combustion, the gas fuel generator. And the gas fuel generator has two pipes going into it. The first one is the fuel pipe. The second one is actually its output pipe, which is all the stuff that it would output. And I'm actually outputting it out in the open because I don't want to mix it with my pollutant, but it would be perfect to do so. And it would be perfect to do so because of the fact that it's mostly pollutants coming out of here. I don't want to do that because then it would heat up my system and make it harder to keep cold. So over here, we have our injection pump, and it's set to 2 kPa. It is a forward pressure regulator, and we set it to 2 kPa on purpose, because if we didn't, it would read 1 kPa, and it wouldn't fill up our pipe fast enough to keep our combustion engine generator thingy functional. So I'm going to come here and delete all of these. And we're going to make some new ones. All right. So here we have some turbos. And as you can see, these turbos are, this one's set to 1,000 liters. This one isn't set at all. We actually set this one over here at this dial. This one is the vent switch, which turns on and off the vents. And as you can see, it quickly changes the pressure and the temperature inside. Because we're using 2 vents that are inputs and 2 that are output, it pretty much, the vents that are inputting, they can only input up to 101 kilopascals, while the vents that are outputting, they're sucking in pretty fast. And they're all doing it in the same little block, so it makes this 25 kPa It was lower than that whenever I first started this before. I guess because the temperature was different or whatever. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk about my setups. So I've only used logic writers up to this point. And so right here, as you may have guessed, I only have logic writers, and they're mostly for the engagement aspect I was talking about earlier. Over here, when I design this, I'm probably going to be using logic writers as well. But I'm actually probably going to be using a chip because I want to automate quality of life things, and I'll describe that in a little bit. Let's go ahead, come over here, disconnect this, and get rid of that. And we're going to keep that on because, you know, we didn't put a switch or anything on it. I just think we should keep it on for now. It's not like we're going to accidentally attach something to it. And because of the temperature, it's not really going to really be unstable, but it does need to be pollutants for the system to work, just so everybody knows that. So if you're going to get pollutants, I would advise that you start learning how to filter the waste tank over here in the furnace. So we begin by turning on our fuel pump. And this is not a pump, it's actually a pressure regulator. Like I said, 2 kPa. That will ensure that only 2 kPa is in the front. Well, here's the generator. It turns on the generator, but before we do that, we have to turn this on. And that will put the air inside, which is these two, equal to the air in the tank, which is over here. But the pressure here is megapascals, while the pressure here is not. So this is a good pressure. There's no reason why we should be overcharging this, but there should still be a system, just in case, that would filter out anything that is overcharged. And I haven't built anything for that, but if I did, which I'm not going to do right now, I would just try to find a way to pipe this probably right here, right around over here or something, and share the vent, or I would delete this vent and I would put a pipe up here and then have them share the same vent because I prefer that they share the same vent for outputting. I don't know why, I just feel like that. Or you know, I could put more than one vent, it doesn't matter. All right, so let's get started. So I turn on the vents, I turn on the fuel. Now I'm going to turn on the coolant switch. And what that will do is it will suck out. It turns both these on, but the output's the only one at 1,000. This one's at 0. So that means nothing's coming in here. Then I turn on my generator, and then I start going up on the temperature, or I mean on the pump to keep it cool. And I'm going to turn this all the way up. Oh, nope, I got to turn it down now. $835. All right, so 835 should be enough to keep this cool and running. So as you see, I've actually managed to get a very good temperature where this is the inside. It's always at 374, but it is flickering. And I can't tell what that number it's flickering to is, but the flicker number is the thing that causes it to shut down and turn off. So I have to keep the temperature cold enough to keep it going. And I have to kind of fidget with it because as you can see, it dropped in Celsius over there, my tank. But not that much. So we're going to come around now. And here we have the turbo input, which is set to 835. So it's pumping out 1,000 at all times, pumping in 835 on 40 or 54 of these radiators that are small. They're small radiators, I can pack them in, but they're equivalent to 10, actually not 10, 5. They're equivalent to 5 of the medium ones in the half, 5.5 medium radiators. It's still going, it's still charging. And while that's going, I'm going to go ahead and start explaining some stuff. So here we have our fuel. It's still going down. It's going down very slowly. I think we have enough fuel to make it. Yeah, we do. Okay, so over here, my idea for design was I was going to use a dial system. And essentially, I still am. But the way the dial is going to work is, you see these stackers are kind of crappy. I don't need just one of an item, and I don't need to be specific either. I need quality of life. And so in order to get quality of life, what I decided I would do is that I would actually set up some buttons, and I was going to set up some buttons that could easily do what I wanted. To describe it, let me see if I can actually set something up here. No, I don't think I'll be able to, but so we'll go ahead and turn nothing on because nothing's connected yet to these. I set these up to connect them to the power over here. Each module should have its own little power of RTGs running it. And ultimately, my idea was I would have a few buttons, and when I press the button, it would automatically turn the stacker to whatever I want to set it to. That would be either one of a few preset buttons, or preset numbers. That's what I wanted. 1, 5, 20, and then 50, and then finally 500. And that would have been my preset. That way I would have been able to so that requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons, right? So the stacker here would never have to, I would never have to sit here and turn this little wheel like a dummy. I would just need 5 buttons set up. Let me go ahead and it would be better to show with the wall. I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be better to show with the wall or something. That's not gonna be good this way. And there is a way to put things through walls like chutes, so I will shamelessly do what I just did. And I'll also do it over here. No shame at all. Sue me. Alright, so these walls here, they won't actually be these walls. You know what? I'm gonna get rid of that right now. We're gonna do doors. Alright, we'll do this kind right here. And so the idea would be you would open this up. There would be buttons. Like that. Why not? Oh my goodness. But the issue with that, of course, is so here we can also do this, and then we can even close it still whenever it's like that. And we could press the buttons as we want and whatever. So you never really have to open this. It's there. Just know it's there. And the problem is, of course, if we set it up this way, we won't be able to do much. And set up this way. Let's look at our temperature for a second. As you can see, that temperature is very stable. everything's working out. We still have some pressure. So let's go ahead and continue now. All right, so I think I would be better off doing it like this. Yeah, I think that'd be better. That'd be a better way to present this. So anyway, this is just a presentation. We could actually expand upon that now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, let's do that. What I'll do is I'll get rid of that one. So remember, this room is a module. So that means that anything in this room has to essentially, I might move these stairs back one just to have a place here that's considered outside, but still right here. I think that would be good. So here's what we do. I essentially want to have 5 buttons. And these 5 buttons dictate essentially one of these stackers. And there would be one of these 5 buttons and either side. So like these two here would be the auto lathe. And I think maybe actually I'll do it like that. Yeah, there we go. And then over here we'd also have some buttons. Probably more. And the thing is, when you build an auto lathe, there's only so many things in every single machine that would be worth doing, conveniently. And so I was thinking of introducing a bit of a convenience mechanic where people can easily click the button. It sets the stacker size, right? So like 1, 5, 20, 50, 500. All right. And from there, over here on this side, it would be exactly what we want to print, we print it. When it's done printing and the stacker when it exports, the export value is a certain amount, the machine will eject it and instantly turn off. That's simple, right? So we can automate turning it off because the activation variable actually works on these. So that means if I activate it again, they'll turn off. So that's what we do there. And essentially, the machine automatically stops printing. It doesn't turn the machine off necessarily. So we could have these turned on, all of them. That was not my original design idea, just so y'all know that. People can still put their resources in manually, something that I'm not a fan of, but still I think it's necessary. And I'm sure I could do something about that later. But if I do, I have to remember the word that I said, engagement. So engagement's actually the big deal here. I want players to be engaged. So if I did a system where people were getting materials, it would be nice if a player was the one that handed the order of materials to them. So that way we would make an assembly line of sorts where if I come over here, what is this? If I come over here and uh-oh, did we delete our giant tank? I sure hope not. All right, so somebody here needs to make some ore, or needs to make some materials. The information from the department over here, they would need some means of telling that department what they need. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to use these, so I'd have to expand upon it somehow, probably back here. And then from there, that information comes over here. And a player will then have something that they can do here. If nobody is there, then perhaps something tells everybody that this station doesn't have anybody working at it and somebody needs something done here, or something needs to be done here. So people could come here, handle the station, and when it's done, they send the material over here to be used. Or they send it to another department that then sends that to this department logistically, or something like that. Actually, you know what? It should just do a shoot down this department. Why not? So let's go ahead and shut this off. We're going to start by turning this down a lot. All right, we turn that off now. There we go. Turn that off. You don't really have to see in here to know that it's empty. It basically is already. And so what you would do then is you would just turn that off. And then finally, now that it's done, we turn that off and it's done. We just shut off the power generator. And in that time period, it used almost a, how much? Is that 10 megapascals? Yeah, 20, almost 20 megapascals, but not really. It actually used less than that. It used probably 15 megapascals worth of fuel. And it almost filled up all these batteries. So that can give you some perspective as to how things actually fill up. And so now that y'all understand my concept, and I'm probably going to expand upon this in a little bit when I stop recording, let's leave the session now. And we're going to go to my next video, where I'm going to explain color coding and the design process I originally had, and why I decided to change my design process into what. So there we go, the lag stops. All right, let's start. So to begin with, the yellow color for entering and exiting the base is actually insufficient. I really do not like it. As you can see the color, I want to show y'all white. So if we use white, it still gives the idea that somebody's using the airlock. Everybody can see it. But it doesn't feel as critical. So it just gives information without any critical thought to it. No big deal. That's my thought process on that. My next flashing light, which is red, is critical. It means this is high priority and it's extremely important. So that is why I decided to use red for the battery being low, because the station's battery would run out, and for this fuel tank here being too pressurized. As you can tell, I haven't actually wired it up or anything yet, but if this fuel tank was too pressurized, it would go off. The other ones are orange, but they're not yellow. And so yellow is still something I would use. Blue and purple as well. And I'm going to go ahead and explain that concept. So flashing lights. Let's go ahead and make some flashing lights right now. And we'll make them right here. White, blue, yellow, orange, red. think this will be more appropriate, and then we'll go ahead and do an RTG. Just temporarily, I'm not going to save any of this, so I just want to show my design process. I really shouldn't have done it that way. So I really don't think I should use purple, actually. I think I'll use khaki. Khaki and orange. All right. So my color coding system for the lights is very simple. The first one is white, and it's meant to represent some form of information as to a process that is currently ongoing. It doesn't need to actually be the airlock coming in and out. It could be that a ship is about to land here, or that, something happens or is happening automatically. You don't need to be worried or startled. You just need to know that it's here. And it might dictate your behavior, maybe. Just a white light. This is all for convenience, for quality of life. No need not to go quality of life, to be honest. All right, so the next one is blue. And so blue, I figured, is a color that's kind of similar to white. And so the idea behind blue is that we have something that needs to be done, right? Somebody has requested something from us, or something is there that hasn't been processed yet. So there's a state of incompletion somewhere. And if something is incomplete, it goes off. But it's not necessarily critical, it's just incomplete. The next one is something that could potentially be hazardous, which is yellow. And yellow is just a potential hazard. It's not a critical hazard or it's not a serious threat to your life. It's just like, hey, you should probably back off a little bit here. You should probably stop heating up the heat. You should stop pressurizing the tanks too high, or whatever it is. You should stop doing something. Something you're doing has caused the light to go off just to warn you early, in an early state. I also haven't played with the lighting yet for LEDs, but I'm pretty sure that the lighting they can accept lights. I haven't tested them yet. And if that's the case, then I wouldn't need to make a bunch of lights like I've been doing inside, which I'll show y'all shortly. So these next ones are important because they are actually hazards that are life-threatening, and that is orange and khaki. So orange could be something is going to blow up. Something is going to be damaged now. Something is, the pressure is too high on one side of a room and not the other. Something is wrong. Something is messed up. So this goes off and it's orange. This one goes off because the air is toxic or it's not breathable. If the air is not breathable, then this is letting you know the air is not breathable. Nothing's going to blow up yet, it seems, but the air is certainly not well. And that's why I chose khaki, because I even chose khaki for the air itself. The air distribution color is khaki. And so red is critically infrastructure failure. That is imminent. Imminent failure of critical infrastructure is red. That doesn't mean like we're getting close to destruction. That means that we're in the destruction zone right now. And prepare yourself. The getting close to destruction zone were these two right here. And so, going this way, You see, I set up a little room. And I even had grading up here that I got rid of, but I shouldn't have. But I'm not going to be using this map again, most likely. So I'm just showing off. And essentially, you can see we set up some signs, and the signs tell us what everything is for consoles. And they have these little warning here. And this one, obviously, it's red because it's a fuel tank, but it wouldn't be red until it was actually critically about to fail, or critically, literally about to explode. In which I would switch all of these to LEDs if I could. I don't know if I can change the network lighting on flashing lights, but I'm going to check it out. And so below, well, the reason we designed a room that is too high is because we wanted to also put some other things here. And so below here, we put the features. So all the features are controlled down here. And to make room for them, I just made the room one taller. I was also going to create the generator here and everything else, and then I realized this isn't actually a good enough space to do everything I wanted. And I'm going to have to actually design my base with some topology, with some method, with some inference. All right. Okay, so here we have our unfiltered tank. Here we have the features of the unfiltered tank. Here we have the mode pipe. Here we have the features of the mode pipe. Here we have each tank of every chemical. Here we have the features, which is to select. These go hand in hand with the mode pipe, as you may have guessed. Here we have the air tank and the fuel tank, and we can mix to create more air, and we can mix to create more fuel. We can also select the air, but we cannot select the fuel. Very important. Next, we have the purge for the 3 tanks that we use in our furnace. And then finally, electrolyzer for water. And this can also be overpressurized, which would have to result in the electrolyzing process to happen early. So I'm going to go over my design real quick and just explain what I'm going to do with it. So as y'all can see, I used all 12 colors, including this one of them twice, which is brown. Brown is unfiltered gases, and it's also waste. And I'm going to do something really quick. All right, and so anyway, instead of doing the system that you saw in the previous furnace, I used a purge system here. And I have this pipe here, which is the unfiltered gases pipe, and this pipe here, which is the mode pipe. These are the 2 main pipes that dictate the logistics of pretty much everything else. These pipes right here are the mixers, the ones that do a little spin around everything. And then everything else is pretty much straightforward. Over here, I put a ice crusher, and you can see it's hooked up to the water, the electrolyzer to electrolyze it. And of course, I wanted to inject fuel directly, so my mixer here mixes the nitrous oxide and the volatiles, and it has a pump to automate the process of heating this to keep it over a certain temperature at all times. That was my idea, at least. As you may have guessed, I would then have to purge excess as it came, which would be a ordeal that I would want to automate as well. But I don't know if I wanted to make it automated in manual or what I wanted to do exactly, because then I could, I could have put a switch in here. If people wanted to automate things, they could turn it off, and if they wanted to make it manual, they could turn it on. And I decided not to make it automated because I wanted some user interaction. That helps with emergence, or not emergence, my goodness. Immersion into the game that people were playing. The furnace setup is the similar one to the other furnace. I use dials. It's also inefficient, like I said, as the other one. It doesn't pump into the waste, it pumps into the pressure. So now we're going to go ahead and look at these. These are all turned on at the same time. And to kick anything out into space that we can't filter because it's too hot, we open the digital valve, come back here, and it filters it into space. Now we come over here. We have this pipe analyzer specifically for the mode pipe. And the mode pipe can be set to one of three modes, which is heat, cold, and eject. So this ejects everything else out that's left inside these. I put too many transfers, never use 3 again, or I won't at least. Next time I'll just use 1. And I'll set it right over here so that way it's actually visible and easier to pipe all of this. It would have been much easier if I would have done just 1. So I've tested them out already, and we're gonna go ahead and come over here. We turned all it off already, okay. So this sets the mode. Let me see something here. Is there anything in there? Yes, there is. There is oxygen involved. No, wait. No, there's not. Never mind. It's in this one. Huh. Oh well. Anyway. So the mode essentially is set like so. And this just connects the mode pipe to the tank. That's all it does. And when the mode's no longer set, it automates sucking it back. So we don't have a turbo for that, but in another version we probably would. So whatever it can't suck back because it's in here or whatever, and we don't want to keep cooling and heating, we just open them both when we're done and push them out into space. So that's essentially the features I had. The color coding, by the way, I decided for the gases is like so. So this has a black label on it. So I chose black for this. However, the canister for pollutants is black, or it's actually the same as the, my bad, it's the same as the carbon label instead of yellow, because the developer originally was going to make the color yellow specifically for empty stuff, like tanks that could be used for anything, canisters that could be any purpose. I don't know why they went yellow for pollutants, but I actually don't mind the direction they went in. So that's why I decided these colors were perfect. If I spawn right now, if I go ahead and do carbon, we got a carbon dioxide canister, and then we have a pollutant canister, and they look the same. If I do nitrogen, whoops, that's not what I wanted. If I do the nitrogen canister and the nitrous oxide canister, they'd be the same, they'd both be green. So that's why I use the labels instead of using the canister color. And I know a lot of people purposely would use their own system because the canister colors. And certain people from other communities want to use their own systems as well. That's fair. So the last thing I'll say before I end this video is I'm going to go over the idea of zones instead of departments. So I wanted to get rid of departments and replace them with zones. And you might think that that is something that's just renaming of something. And in a way, it kind of is. But what makes it different is that um, zones don't have heads of departments. So essentially, I wanted to get rid of toxic behavior in these social deduction games. So one thing I decided to do, because this is still a game that could potentially be used for social deduction, I was going to have the maintenance tunnels be underneath. and we're going to set this up to look like a pier and beam structure. So I'll go ahead and come inside, show you where the entrances to the maintenance place would be. So right here, I would have put walls instead, and then I would have had a downward hallway that I'd go down underneath, and I would be in the maintenance tunnels. And the maintenance tunnels would be used to essentially pipe and wire everything from into everything without it looking too ugly. That would be my idea, at least. So ultimately, anyone who wanted to do things, I didn't want to keep it social deduction because I feel like social deduction is just too toxic. People can't handle it. And so instead, I wanted to do it something like a role play that might have elements of social deduction without severely damaging everything and making it really obvious when somebody's a griefer. Because in Minecraft, it's actually less toxic than this is. This is actually much more toxic than Minecraft. And I don't mean the Stationeers community. I mean the community of Space Station 13. So the heads of each department, they basically are just people playing the game. They're not trained to be heads in real life. And somehow, the administrator refuses to hold them to the standards in almost every server across the board to role play to the same standard that they want others to, depending on them, because they're ahead. So, psychological reasons or whatever, the admins smoking too much pot and their whole life and never really figuring out how to use context clues and deduce things and use inference, essentially end up not knowing what to do while having so much power. It's actually disgusting. And anyway, I decided to replace the council and the security and everything that's toxic with, my bad, the council. I decided to replace it all with the council. That's what I meant to say. Can't believe I messed that one up. So there are no heads of departments, there's the council. And the council basically also has a grand council above it. And they decide how everything's going to be somewhat organized and ran. The grand council is like the final say on specifics. Anybody could approach the grand council. The council itself is more so not as approachable on purpose. And that's so that way they can just do what they do without really communicating with people. That seems like a bad idea, doesn't it? I would agree. They should communicate with people. That is one of the things that makes the heads of departments so, that is what makes the admins so bad. They don't socialize. But they expect people to socialize when they role play. So role playing is not exclusive to socializing. It can be competitive. It's about immersion. Gosh, messed that one up again. So I also was going to make a department for filling canisters up specifically, and I thought that'd be a good idea. Um, Filling up canisters, crushing ice, processing things to make them able to be filtered into different things that could be used to make canisters. So instead of having a typical atmospheric system that has a distribution and a scrubber, everything would be more localized, and people in a general area or a zone would all share their own atmos. So um, there would still be a scrubber, there would still be a pump to pump in, but for the most part, that wouldn't really matter too much, except for somebody whose job is to mule from one department to the next the canisters down the hallway to get things done. And for things that people need to do, there would be a light because there's a bell in every department in Space Station 13. People just ring the bell, ding ding. So that's my idea, and that's all I have to say. I think that's it. Um, the zone system, other than changing the council into a single department that is the council, the Grand Council, security, and the scribes. The scribes which do things for the council. Um, Engineering also has some changes. because I am separating atmospheric technicians from engineers. Now you might think that that's stupid, but no, it's not. And I'm putting them in the service department, which I'm renaming to the life support department. Or it could be quality of life department. You know what? I'll let the council decide later. That's a joke, of course, because I probably won't even be playing my own maps I make. Um, so that being said, there's still a research department. The color coding, by the way, I wanted to prioritize by psychology, or should I say the way people see things, so that way it can get some effectiveness. This department here, the cargo department, is actually orange, but I put this all brown. And so I want to make I want to make all this department orange. I want to make the engineering department, I wanted to originally do it blue. Then I would make the council like gold or something, but I decided to make the council black. Life support is green. The council might be white instead. I'm not sure, black or white. Whichever one, because they both stand out as a far end of something where it's like we're the authority. Both are both colors that could be considered menacing. And that's kind of the idea, but not really. I don't want them to be menaces. I don't actually want to get that psychological thing across. So I might make them yellow instead because it's like a slap down, right? And this is orange and they're yellow and it's like, well, we're gold, haha. You know? Or somebody might say that they're pissed. That would be one of those psychological things, so that way we can tone down the toxicity. And no, I'm not talking about toxic masculinity or something. So the research department can stay purple. I just feel like it should be purple. I don't know. I was thinking of doing it blue instead, but no. And so I created a flag system just for research. So the research department would have a job of actually going out and exploring outside, just like the mining department. But unlike the mining department, they would go outside and they would essentially place these flags. As of right now, I actually did a pretty bad job with my system of placing flags. So let me go ahead and show you what I mean. I'm going to go back in the base and I'm going to place a beacon. Not the kind you start with, but a real beacon that you can make later in the game. I'm going to go ahead and look at how much fuel we have. We have pretty good propellant. All right, I'm coming up here. All right, cool. Now, place the beacon, place the cable. Turn it on. Now let's go ahead and get a tracker chip. I'm going to delete this because I don't need it for now. And then we're going to swap this out. Put this here. Actually, you know what? I don't think I need that either. No, I'll keep it there. Okay. So we've got our tracker cartridge. There we go. Set to the beacon. Let's rename the beacon, actually. To bacon. And there we go. The tracker is going to bacon. So we come out here, and this is essentially one of my intentions for research. I actually plan on doing a lot of things that the game developer probably didn't even intend, just to keep people occupied and entertained. From and my three vectors of concern are roleplay. You know what? I can actually spray paint that, can't I? I'll spray paint it white just because. So our three vectors are roleplay, Socialization is one of them, and competition is the last one. Only one of those are necessary for people to be appeased. I specifically want to make content that could appease people. We can't spray paint it. That is unacceptable. Shame on you, developer. I'm joking. Please don't kill me. So anyway, most of these departments like this, the modules that you saw earlier, those are actually for um, role playing. Those aren't for socializing. Socializing doesn't require, a little light that's blue that's going off, and then it's like you're doing whatever you're doing, and you're like, oh boy, somebody needs me. That's not the idea, right? That's not socialization. That's people asking each other for stuff. And so people are interacting, and that's not a big deal. Socialization would be more so being a part of a team. That would be socialization, because then one team member is doing things with other ones, and as other people are working for somebody, they start to talk to each other ambiently, or passively, or however you want to describe it. And so, what I've thought of doing for construction is make a construction team for engineering to replace the atmospheric team. So that way, Atmos wouldn't be the engineers of their own department, but they would be the ones who use their department. See what I'm saying? So construction would be the ones who have the more advanced knowledge instead of just Atmos, because Atmos is one of the most complex departments in most games that are like this. So, that being said, this yellow flag here, oh, it's not yellow, it's green, my bad. This green flag is actually 64 meters away from the base. And one of the things about the green flag is it's actually on top of a very visible hill. And I'm going to be changing that in my final iteration of my ideas. So essentially, the green flag tells us we're within 100 meters. We're going to go to the next hill now. And if you're wondering how come I'm so bright, it's because I got this inside my backpack turned on at all times. Yeah. So I'd love to be somewhere where I could see these views without being killed by the environment. So here is yellow. If we come in here and we look, we're past 100 meters, and we've ran into a yellow flag that's still facing our base. We can still see the dim light. So we're going to go further now. There's the next biggest hill. It's very visible. And here is the next yellow light. We can still see the beacon from our base a little bit. And if we do this, we're 200 meters. And this is the last yellow flag that we have. Still beacon visible. Remember that for those of you. This beacon being visible, it doesn't matter at all if you're playing on the original Europa. Just so y'all know, y'all won't be able to see it because there's mountains in the way. And here's the red flag. We still see the base at an elevated position, so we still know that there's something over there. And it's facing our base, but we're 300 meters. So I made this flag system so that way people can find their way back home if they forgot to turn the beacon on or if they got lost or whatever. But I specifically made it because I wanted the beacon to be controlled by research. And I also wanted some of the other things to be done by research as well, but like, for example, making fuel and stuff like that would be research related, but making a super powerful explosive with the fuel is not something that is, in the research department's domain, but, you would need an igniter, and I think you could do it, but I could put that in research because that is in research in Space Station 13, and I think it would be a good little asset to add. But the thing is, of course, who needs that? Who actually needs that? Um, sure, it's good to know, but nobody really needs that in the station. Um, so I don't really see the purpose other than comedy, right? And I don't want this to be social deduction necessarily, but social deduction would still be something that's somewhat useful. But I'm thinking something more of a peaceful, casual social deduction than I am something that involves actually killing each other and stealing each other's belongings and um, breaking the infrastructure just to kill somebody, or blowing yourself up in self-defense or whatever people do these days. And so that is my idea. That is my ideas. I plan to expand upon my module system. I plan to eventually delete this map. All of this will be gone. I already showed all of you it anyway. It's pretty simple to make. Um, and that's pretty much it. So thank you all for watching, and yeah, your mother.